All right, welcome back to another episode of Crestview Leads, where I, Tim Bolduc, get a chance to sit down with people that have had influence in my life, specifically in the area of leadership. And today I'm very excited about my guest. I've got Colonel Jason Grandy, who's with me today. Colonel Grandy was the commanding officer for the 919th. I had a chance to be an honorary commander over there with their MSG. I'm going to try to get Miss Olivia on here a little bit later on.
That'd be great.
Yeah, but so good time. So Jason agreed to come and hang out with me. This is his last week in the area, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But Jason, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Jason Grandy. Was born in New York, moved to North Carolina. So
New York, like city guy, New York, or
Rochester.
New York? Okay.
Yeah, not more towards the call it the Canadian side of
the
things,
hunting and the fun, the fishing, the fun.
Yeah,
stuff.
moved to North Carolina when I was a little kid, so I don't really remember it. So I consider myself to have grown up in the South, if you will.
Right.
Even though North Carolina, a lot of people don't think North Carolina is the South.
It's definitely.
But Catholic school my whole life, and then I ended up at Clemson University.
Right. As we can tell by the shirt.
Yeah.
Right. I'm used to seeing you in like flight suits and camo or digicam or whatever that stuff's called, but today you're
always got to have my tiger paw with me somewhere.
Rocking the paw.
I got commissioned through the ROTC program at Clemson University, which is and I try to I always want to go back if I can. So the Clemson has meant a lot to me growing up, and it still does. So I ended up getting my commission through there, and then ended up on active duty flying F-16s. I went to pilot training, flew F-16s for about 5 years, and then I transitioned to flying MQ-1s, remotely piloted aircraft, and did that for the better part of 18 years in combination of MQ-1s and MQ-9s. And then throughout my career, I ended up making a decision to join the Air Force Reserve, and then became a reservist in 2009 and never looked back. So I've been doing that for a long time. Combination of different statuses, full-time, part-time, and then was selected to lead the 2nd SOS as the commander there for the MQ-9 unit and bring that unit here from Las Vegas. And then, which was an incredibly rewarding experience. And then I spent some time at AFSOC headquarters, and then back to the 919th for group command, and then wing command after that.
So and then, for those of them, us, I wouldn't know this except for I just got to fly a simulator for an MQ-9. What is an MQ-9?
An MQ-9 is a remote attack aircraft.
Right. Also known as the Reaper.
The Reaper. Yes.
Right. So like in all these movies where it's this drone that goes and flies over and then blows up stuff.
It can do that, but its primary mission is intelligence surveillance. Reconnaissance, yes.
But it can carry all kinds of different cool things.
Absolutely. Right? It can carry all kinds of forward-firing munitions, ballistic munitions, all kinds of stuff. It's
so you were tasked with, and this I didn't know this until last week or whenever we met for my last day as an honorary commander. You were tasked, when you say you were tasked with moving the MQ-9s from Las Vegas to here, I mean, you kind of brushed over that like, I just moved the MQ-9s from there to here. But that's actually a heavy, heavy lift.
It was.
So tell a little bit about what that means. That means you're picking up an entire mission from Las Vegas and moving it here. People, equipment.
All of it.
So tell about it.
So real quick before I do that, just to finish a couple of things, I want to make sure everybody understands. I'm a husband to an amazing wife.
Oh, you better get that in.
Her name's Amanda. She's an incredibly loving individual who shows me incredible love to allow me to do the things that I get to do. I have 3 kids. My oldest is in the Army. My middle's in Tennessee. My youngest is a senior at Baylor, and I have a 4-year-old grandson. And I love being a granddad. So,
oh my gosh, that's the best.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I can relate to the granddad thing. I just spent 5 weeks with mine. She came down here and said, "Oh my goodness." Yeah.
So sorry. Back to the original question. So
no, I would like for you to be able to go home. So I'm glad that you got that in.
Putting all of that together, we had several tasks going on at once. One was a conversion from an MQ-1 to an MQ-9.
Right.
And it was because the MQ-9s were phasing out of AFSOC. So we as a reserve unit had to figure out a way to do that. And it just so happens that we had a vast amount of experience in our organization already with people who had been qualified previously as Reaper air crew. So So our ability to do that hinged a lot on the experience that we had inside the unit. So while we were doing that conversion from MQ1 to MQ9 in Las Vegas, we also had to figure out a way to take about 100 people and get them PCS'd to Florida,
right,
as well as have the ground control station equipment and all the background stuff that runs an MQ9 operation, which is very heavily influenced by computer systems and software and servers, all those things. So we had to completely modify a hangar here at Hurlburt, and then take that unit and figure out a way to stagger a PCS flow so that the people who PCS'd to Hurlburt could then go back and still run the operation until we were ready to no kidding turn the switch on here at Hurlburt and fly an MQ9 from it. So the good news is, because what we call remote split operations is a thing, you can do it from anywhere as long as you have the right connection.
Right.
And so we did several tests the week prior to doing this, and we realized that we had all the things that we need, and no kidding, we landed or handed back an aircraft from the Vegas cruise, turned on the switch at Hurlburt, and we started flying it from Hurlburt and never looked back. And no one knew. Right. No one knew that we really even did it.
Right. And that mission is super important because it's constantly active.
It's constant.
You're collecting data and information and that kind of stuff. So very, very cool. Yeah. And so you were tasked with the overall moving of it. So was it stressful? Were you worried about it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I was kind of alone and unafraid here. I was tasked to be the advanced team lead to make sure the facility was set, as well as I was the acting scheduler for all of our operations, so the 24-hour operations. So I needed to manage both. How do we do it here and how do I manage having enough people in Las Vegas and at Hurlburt simultaneously to be able to do both, and then move those other folks that hadn't moved yet into the area.
What's so crazy about that is, so the MQ9 and what was the previous one too?
MQ1.
MQ1 and then the MQ9.
Predator. Yeah.
Both of those are most of their work is on the other side of the world.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
And specifically during that time period, it would have been on the other side of the world. So like the piece of that equation that's kind of brushed over again in that explanation is that you're working, moving troops and managing troops and scheduling troops in Las Vegas, in here, while they do work on the other side of the planet.
That's correct.
That's fantastic. That's super cool. So you're a colonel, right?
Yes.
So how long have you been at that rank? And
about 4.5 years.
4 years.
Right.
And so you came to, when you moved the MQ9, you didn't automatically take over command here, did you? Or
I did not.
There's a space in between or something? How does
there
that
was.
work?
So we finally got the squadron up and running, and then I took over as the hiring official, if you will, for the squadron. So my job in the two sauce after all of that move was to be the guy who decides who we're bringing into the unit and give recommendations to the commander.
So when you say two sauce, what does two sauce?
Sorry, the 2nd Special Operations Squadron.
2nd Special Operations Squadron, and the 2nd represents what part of the world they govern, or?
Nope, it's just the squadron designator.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Special Operations Squadron.
That's right.
So you were in charge of hiring, and then they brought you back to run it.
Yep. So I kind of made my way through the leadership channels. I was the director of personnel, and then I became the director of operations, and then I was selected to be the commander. After that. Yeah.
So you did that for 2 years?
I was in command for about 2.5, almost 3 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And then at the conclusion of that, which was last week, now you're going on.
Well, that was the 2nd SOS. That was the commander at the 919th.
Oh, that's right. So tell me about that.
3 years.
Okay.
And then prior to that, 1.5 years as the group commander as well. So 4.5 years total straight being as a commander at the 919th.
Here.
Right.
Yes. Right. And so now you're done and you're going to a different assignment.
I am.
And that assignment is somewhere else.
Somewhere at the Pentagon.
Somewhere in the Pentagon that we can't talk about, that dark basement room over there. So
it's not that we can't talk about it. I just don't know what
it is.
You
just don't know where it's going to be. So then we technically can't talk about it. Listen, you're supposed to make this much more inviting.
I'm
so
sorry.
You should have made it more mysterious. That way we know exactly what we're doing. So it's cool. So you've had all kinds of different, assignments. And it's been fun for me to get to know you over the last couple of years, and especially because most recently when we had our last little get together for the 9/19th, we got a chance to talk about kind of, for lack of a better way, and not to sound corny about it, but like just the overall burden of command, like the pressures associated with being in a leadership role. And that's what I really wanted to kind of drill into today, because those are the things that, man, like, I don't think people understand, like not everybody, but a lot of people, they say, oh, I want to be in charge. I want to be the boss, for example. But when, first of all, there's a difference between being the boss and being a leader. Right.
I would agree.
The boss is somebody who you do what they say because of the position they have. A leader is somebody who you choose to follow because you respect them. Right. And so, like, tell me some of the things that you've done to prepare yourself for these different roles as a leader. So, like, I got a chance to know your team. I was paired up with Olivia Nelson, Colonel Nelson, who is a MSG commander there. I guess it's called commander, right? MSG commander. And so I got an opportunity to see how much they respected you. And so tell some of the things that you do to prepare yourself to be ready to lead people instead of just getting the assignment and being the boss. How do you get ready to lead?
So I got to be honest with you, this is going to probably not be much fun to listen to, but I wouldn't say I necessarily did any extra preparation. The military prepares you to a certain extent through all the professional military education and things like that kind of helps you do that. But I think the majority of the things that I did to prepare was look at leaders that I emulate and or not emulate, but respect, and want to emulate some of those things. It turns out that most of the people that I respect have similar ways of leading that I do. So the bottom line is I never wanted to be anything that I wasn't. Right. So I always just tried to be myself.
So that's what you mean by that. Tease that out. So when you say never, say that again.
So I one of the leaders that I respect a lot, and you may go down a rabbit hole here, is Davos Sweeney.
Okay.
And so,
here we go.
So,
I talk about saving, so that's okay.
I say that because he said something that he's probably said it a lot of times, but I heard him say it, and his point was, don't ever try to be anything you're not. And people will see right through it. And so I decided that I was going to lead in a way that I thought best because of who I am.
I love it.
And not try to create this leadership persona that people will see right through anyway, So that was something that I learned a long time ago, or at least kept in the back of my head as something that was important for me, not to try to be something I'm not.
What's so cool about that? It's funny to me that you said, oh, you may not like this because it's not going to be exciting. Honestly, that's what this whole program is about, right? So we do Crestview Leads because I wanted to have an opportunity to bring in people that have had influence in my life in the area of leadership, because I think that, I believe education is important, and I believe that you should read books. At lunch today, we talked about a book, that I read and use all the time. Those things are important, man. But at the end of the day, those things are just tools.
Right.
They are not necessarily the path, right? So the path to being a leader is absolutely in being who you are and being genuine in it. And if you genuinely care about people, and if that's your top priority is that they reach their full potential, the rest of it takes care of itself. Now, you want to get some stuff in your tool bag. You want to understand how to deal with people when they're out of line and all that nonsense stuff too. But don't ever go into it trying to be somebody that you're not. I love 100%, that. Yeah. I told one of my guys that I was working with that was hoping to apply for a job that I didn't think he was quite ready for yet, and so I had that difficult conversation with him, and in that conversation I told him, I said, look, man, you've done a good job of building a resume, but you haven't necessarily built a career,
right?
And so what can you look back on? You want to be the top leader. Where did you demonstrate that ability other than going to a class?
Yeah. And here's the other side of that is this was never in my plan.
Right. I believe that.
It was never part of it. I was going to probably do my 20 years and I was probably going to retire, And so I never had any vision of being a commander at the squadron level, let alone a group and a wing level. It just kind of happened. And so, and some of that turned into out of necessity, if you will. So part of it was, when I had the opportunity at the 2nd SOS as a squadron commander, I looked at it as I didn't want the future of the squadron to be dictated by someone who I felt was going to be detrimental to the organization. So I put my name in the hat, thinking that at least they'll have another option to look at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I
know that I don't know if that sounds bad or not, but it's kind of one of those. I did that because I didn't want the organization to fail.
Yeah.
Not that I thought I could be the person who kept it from that, but I had a feeling that some of the other candidates would send it down that path.
Didn't understand what it was about. You know, the thing about it is, man, really good leaders we find really good leaders in that space when they go, you know what, I don't necessarily want this, but I know that I can protect where we're headed. Yeah. I know that I can protect what we need to accomplish. I know that I can help us from not going backwards. And then all of a sudden they get it. And then from that, the greatness that's within them comes out. Right. And so it was, I love that idea, that concept. And, you know, we talked again about it at lunch that, you know, I believe we're in the space until it's time to go.
Right.
Yeah. I believe that completely. And so I also believe that we were put together and created for a purpose, and that when we're exercising inside of that purpose, when we're living inside that purpose, that that's where we find out who we really are.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the people that are around us that are, you know, stacking resumes and all that stuff is great, but that are saying, you know, one day I'm going to do. Now, I think you should have ambitions and goals for sure. But what is the purpose for that goal? Is it to keep us on the right track? Is it to help people reach their full potential? Is it to make the city the best possible place for us? That's what we try to do. Or is it so that somebody will look at me and go, hey, you're great as a manager or whatever? So
right.
Yeah. I love that piece of that. So when you got the job, so you said, hey, may not be the best, but I'm certainly not the worst. It could definitely be worse.
At least what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. So then you get picked. What goes through your mind?
What did I just sign myself up for?
Yeah.
You know, because it could have been a lot easier. My path to you know, the end state could have been filled with a lot less heartache and all those other kinds of things. But I think at the end of the day,
less meaning, probably.
Very much so. Yeah. Lot less purpose.
Yeah.
And that's kind of boring, you know? Right. So for me, it was I got over the, what did I just get myself into thing. Yeah. And then decided that I needed to figure out where we were going to go and how I was going to make sure that the people that entrusted me with the responsibility of this squadron, that we were going to seek the goal that we needed to be. And it was about trying to make the organization better than the way that I found it. Yeah. So, and that spans the spectrum of a lot of different aspects, whether it's tactical employment of a weapon system to are the people taken care of in a way that keeps them coming back and wanting to stay, you know? And so, and that's not just giving out free stuff, right? That's accountability as well that goes along with all of those things.
Yeah. So. We just completed our employee survey, and I was telling my team this morning, you know, there's a few comments on there that my team is going to go focus on, and they're just nonsense. Mm-hmm. But the vast 152 people commented on one section of it, and you know 145 of them were talking about how great it is, and so, or in some essence, you know, how great it is. And I got to thinking about, you know, how that's how we measure it, right? Is did we get people to have the best possible experience that they can have, right? And so as leaders, we can focus on the negativity. So you had to take the organization through a complete retooling. Mm-hmm. In essence, right? So your maintainers, that all shifted around.
Well, so we didn't have we don't have maintenance in that organization, if you will, in the second SOS. Now, when it came to the wing command piece, it was in a great place already. I'll say that. Kevin Merrill, Colonel Kevin Merrill, now Brigadier General Kevin Merrill, was a fantastic leader, and he saw us through some really difficult issues. And so if we talk specifically about wing command and what I thought of when I first took the seat, it was daunting. Yeah. And here's why. We were still in the middle of COVID.
Right.
We were, and what I faced within a month was shot mandates for people who weren't really okay with that.
Right.
You know? And then it turned into organizational restructure. And that restructure had a lot to do with what is the Reserve Command and how is that relationship with Air Force Special Operations Command, and what can both provide each other in order to be the organization we needed to be for the future. And so we divested of a couple mission sets, and then we divested of, and one of those being combat aviation advising, and another being maintenance period. Our entire maintenance organization had no job.
And that's the part that I was,
and then we were headed right into a what we call a unit compliance inspection. So were we in compliance with everything? Yep. And so there was a lot of things right on the front edge of when I took over that was like right on the horizon that we needed to make sure that we were tackling appropriately. Yep. And then meanwhile trying to navigate the mandates and things like that with the COVID shot.
So how do you do that? How do you keep people engaged, right? So first of all, you're telling them to do something they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. We won't get into the politics of all of that, but there's a whole lot of stuff surrounding obviously that stuff. And then you've got 2 mission sets that you're divesting mm-hmm. of, which means basically these people may or may not have a job somewhere.
Correct.
In the reserve at all.
Yeah.
And so how do you maintain, what were some of the things you did to maintain the morale of the troops while you were going through that?
So one of the things was I needed them to understand that I was going to do everything I could to make sure that the mission would continue, right? So that we were going to have something follow on. And you know, a lot of that was engagement with the AFSOC commander at the time to make sure that he understood the value that the reserve brought.
Right.
We also had some mission that was continuing, especially in the maintenance organization. We still were doing that operation through October of 2023. So we found out that it was divesting. We had a whole year to wait until it actually did, and to keep people motivated. Yeah. So we had a lot of deployment stuff still going. And so my task to everyone was, look, you're going to continue to be the best maintainers on the planet. And that's what we expect. Let me do the job and worry about what the follow-on is. I need you to hang out. I need you to hang with me, right? Hang tight. But I'm not gonna tell you it's gonna be sunshine and rainbows after this. Like, I was honest. I told him I can't guarantee anything, but if I'll guarantee you that I'm gonna fight for what should be the future. Funny. And whether or not we get there it's not any of our choices.
Sure. One of my cool Colonel Grandy stories is very early on. You may or may not remember this, but we were getting a brief over on Duke, mm-hmm. and that subject came up, and the person who was in charge of the maintenance side of things mm-hmm. was there, and so everybody around your table was kind of giving us a brief, and I could feel in their portion of the brief the anxiety that they were feeling, and so instead of just moving on to the next person, you very eloquently, but you didn't stop the conversation or anything like that, but you made sure between that person's report and the next person's report that you jumped in and reassured that individual of like what the fight was, who was taking mm-hmm. up the fight, what their mission was. I believe it was a female, what her mission mm-hmm. was, and for her to focus on her mission, and that you were going to focus on your mission, which was to set in order the steps for their next future. Yeah. And I remember sitting there, not just because you're sitting here in front of me today on my podcast, but I remember sitting there thinking, I like this guy. I like this guy because you recognized the need, you understood where they were at, and you said, okay, listen, I want to make sure you understand you're not in the fight alone. There's another one in the fire with you. Yeah. I'm in the fire with you. You take care of what you got to take care of, and I'll do my piece and my part.
Yeah. So what I didn't want them to do was be burdened with, what am I going to do? I knew that was going to happen, but at the same time, I needed their focus to be fixing airplanes.
I love that.
Right, and so because if you're thinking about these other things and you can't compartmentalize to a certain extent of when I'm here, I need to stay focused on this thing so that the air crew that are flying these airplanes are safe, that no one's getting hurt, all the things, and being able to continue to maintain deployment readiness was very important.
I love it. I talk about it like this. In crisis management, I always just tell them, look, I just need you to take the next step in front of you, tackle the next thing that's in front of you, and let me worry about the big picture. And if you put a little bit of faith in me, I got 100% of faith in you, and we're going to get this thing done. And that's usually the way that I relate to them. So listen, man, it's hard to believe, but we're almost to our time already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? These things go by pretty quick. So, but I always want to ask this question, and I'll get you back on. We'll do this again, even if we got to do it remote. But I always love to ask this question. If you look back over your career, over your life, and you look for somebody who's had an influence in your life in some way, in the form of leadership, what is it about them that makes, and it's somebody you want to emulate, what is it about them that makes you want to emulate them? And how do you apply that?
So I kind of let the cat out of the bag already.
Sure.
There's two, right? And Dabo's one of them. And part of it is about that you don't try to be anything you're not. And,
I love that.
And the other person is my dad. Cool. My dad is my hero. Nice. He always has been. I've told him this before. He probably doesn't believe it, but at the end of the day, my dad has a servant's heart, and he leads through service. And I've always loved that about him, and I've always wanted to be just like him. So I feel as though that's part of my calling too, is to be a servant leader, if you will. And so my dad is that other person for me.
So good. Yeah, man, that's my dad's one of mine as well, for sure. So I love that. Jason, I appreciate you coming out, hanging out with me today. I'm wishing you the best as you move on to your next thing over in the Pentagon. Sounds super cool, but it'll probably be super boring compared to what you got to do here.
I'll report back. I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know how it goes. But again, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. For those of you who watch the podcast, again, thank you for hanging with us. Like it, share it. It's on all different podcast platforms. You can catch us on YouTube, on the City of Crestview's website, and on our Facebook page. So have a good day.